Hello, everybody. This session is called Global Citizenship Education on the Ground, Experiences in International Contexts. The reason why I'm talking about global citizenship on the ground is because I'm particularly interested in the actual practice of global citizenship education and how it's experienced by students and by teachers. I'm specifically interested in formal education settings. So being an academic researcher in global citizenship education, I'm a former teacher myself. It's shown me that although we hold up global citizenship education as an aim of education, we're still actually finding out what it actually means and what it is in practice. And what's more, the meaning of global citizenship education, it keeps changing. It keeps moving. And sometimes when I was researching global citizenship, it felt like trying to get hold of a very slippery fish or trying to grab a huge floating cloud. It was a very difficult thing to do. So my presentation today is about the importance of scholarly academic research into global citizenship education. And I'm urging everyone working in global citizenship, whether you're a teacher or educator, whether you're a consultant, whether you're working with an international organization or an NGO, to engage with the wide range of academic and scholarly research in the field. The transformative aspects of global citizenship will become known to us through research. And we need to understand what transformative education can actually mean, what it looks like for learners. So a fundamental question to ask ourselves then, before we start, this is a preamble to my presentation, is where does educational knowledge come from? And this question highlights the philosophical basis of educational research and knowledge. Educational knowledge comes from different traditions and disciplines in different parts of the world and depends on the conceptualization of education and society and the status of teaching and teachers and the expertise that's expected of them. An interesting provocation is education an open system or a closed system? I'm drawing on Hurt Beester's idea here of how to approach education. I mean, what are the degrees of determinism in educational settings? Can we really predict what happens in educational settings? I'm sure a few teachers joining us today might say, I can't predict what will happen in a class from one day to the next. So can we really predict what will happen, and how does that affect how we seek knowledge and how we apply knowledge? So that makes the relationship between education and research very complex and dictates the kind of research that is conducted and valued. Knowledges and worldviews about education are part of broader histories and systems. So education and research remain highly contextualized. Examining humans and their social worlds in educational settings, for example, is very different from examining the physical and biological sciences. So in today's session, I'm really advocating for a diversity of perspectives in global citizenship research, not just researchers from a particular part of the world or particular educational traditions, but a plurality, not just dominant perspectives, but more marginalized experiences and perspectives as well. So thinking about research and practice, we must also consider the role of teacher or educator and how research informs practice. For a competent teacher, we know, doesn't just simply deliver procedural interventions, but also interprets. It's a craft, okay? Teachers make decisions. So evidence and knowledge from research can help to coordinate effective practice and activate educator critical reflection. So my hope is that there's not just one sort of type of educational research, but there's many. and that we don't just encourage educational research into global citizenship, but we also encourage research literacy, because being able to read research and understand research is a particular skill in itself. And to understand the philosophies that underpin academic research in global citizenship. So questioning where we place authority when considering research is essential, and where do we see inquiry as legitimised and why? Okay, I'm going to get stuck in now. So what is global citizenship education? This is a very big question. It's something that we've probably all been considering for some time now. It is understood as a response to globalization, as the global dimension of citizenship education to align with our globally interconnected lives and identities, to help us get along in diverse societies, and to address finding solutions to global problems. It has been used as an umbrella term for intercultural education, environmental sustainability education, and the like, but it's also used as a buzzword. It's thrown around very liberally, and it can be used superficially as a kind of window dressing in corporate type marketing. The role of education to solve problems in the world is an interesting question to consider. So, solutions, yeah, we need them, but what is the role of education? Is that the only reason why we're educating young people? So I want to pose that question so you can think about that. Scholars have attempted to map the typologies of global citizenship education to try to categorize what it can mean. It can mean seeing humanity as a community, or more of a competition type thing. It can try to even out power imbalances, or it can exacerbate inequality. Global citizenship can be a leg up in the global job market, for example, or a humanistic care and responsibility for others. Subsequent research into typologies and categorizations has shown that in practice, there's blurring between the lines of the different categories. So typologies are dynamic, and global citizenship education can start off as one thing, and then it mutates into another thing in practice as it hits more sort of dominant ways of thinking. And another interesting thing to think about is that international organizations interpret global citizenship in different ways. Organizations like UNESCO and the OECD, for example, they have very different definitions of global citizenship. So it is a highly contested concept. Now, researching global citizenship education, broadly speaking, this is what academic research attempts to do. It attempts to explore, describe, and explain. And in the current world that we're living in, it's doing this in a very dynamic and complex reality. So researching global citizenship education is very political, it is negotiated, and it is contextualized, because there are different starting points from any type of research. There are various ways of being and knowing with different worldviews and legacies of the past that influence ideas about the purpose of education, the questions that we ask about education, and how meaning and knowledge are created. So it is through these different research lenses that we can gain a better understanding of global citizenship education that can inform policy and practice. So with this in mind, it is important that we know more about how global citizenship education, a very contested, a very changeable, a very amorphous idea, is being interpreted and realised in different educational contexts. I chose to do my PhD research in global citizenship education. I wanted to find out what it means. So I really wanted to explore and describe. As I had worked in international schools for a very long time in my teaching career, I knew that landscape well. and they were often somehow transcending national borders with an international curricula and with very diverse communities. So another thing that's interesting about international schools that they are growing in numbers around the world. So I thought that this would be a rich terrain to investigate. International schools often have an ethos or a mission of global understanding and peace. Simultaneously, international schools are elite institutions for the most part, and they are businesses, so they frequently operate for profit. International schools are not all the same. That's an important thing to emphasize here. They can be schools for expatriates, schools with global perspectives for local students. So it's a very sort of varied landscape. My research foregrounded student lived experience. So I'm really interested in how students actually experience global citizenship education. I'm very respectful of children's perspectives and their roles as citizens and social agents. So I spent time in 3 schools. So it's quite a small sample. I looked at a school in Finland. It's a not-for-profit school, and a school in the Netherlands, which was a fee-paying school subsidised by the Dutch government, and a school in Australia, which was a private independent school. So I visited and spent time in 3 schools in these different geographical locations. The participants were middle school students, so they were all adolescents around about the age of 14 to 16. And I also, as participants, I had their school leaders, so the directors of the school, and teachers. All of my participants had a transnational experience in their lives. So they either had a migration background or they had some experience living and working outside of what they considered to be their home country. Most of the students had complex cultural identities and felt a sense of belonging to multiple places. So I'm going to show you some of the findings from the research. I can't show you everything today because it's a half-hour slot. So I thought I'd show you some interesting snippets that you might like to take away and think about. So these are some of the results from the interview data. So I conducted phenomenological interviews. That means like deep lived experience interviews with the students. And this is from 14 students, 3 school directors, and 5 teachers and leaders. Very deep, long interviews, okay? And the data that I collected was interpreted using reflexive thematic analysis. So it's a very comprehensive type of data analysis. Okay, the findings from the study revealed that young people and the school staff have a tendency to interpret global citizenship education as interculturalism. Okay. However, there's some differences in how they interpreted that. Whereas students placed heavy emphasis on relationships, teachers and school leaders had more simplistic interpretations. So, yeah, students are placing more emphasis on relationships between the other students and also teachers. So students described interpersonal relationships with other young people and also with teachers, and they spoke of the importance of care and compassion. The importance of intercultural exchange moved from the classroom to the playground and to the world outside the school. So this interaction happened inside the classroom and outside. Young people and school staff experience global citizenship as having to adapt and to assimilate to a dominant culture. I thought that was an interesting point. The school staff were quite simplistic in their conceptualization of global citizenship education as interculturalism. For example, they understood that they modeled global citizenship by learning essentialized cultural communication styles. So they thought that global citizenship was understanding that people from this place communicate in this way, or people from that place communicate in that way. So it's very, very rigid. For teachers and leaders, there was also the prominent idea of the school being one big happy intercultural family, and that ignored ideas of cultural hierarchies and other power imbalances. So there was a tendency to think everything's fine, everything's rosy, and it's a happy intercultural family. If you'd like to read some more about those findings, I do have an article that was published in the Journal of Research and International Education, which you can access there. It's an open access journal article, so you can read more about those findings of global citizenship interpreted as interculturalism. Check how we're doing for time. Some more interview results, which were interesting, which might pique your interest. I found that global citizenship is experienced as mysterious and implicit. So there was this general mystery around what global citizenship actually means. Students said that how it gets interpreted in schools is dependent on the teacher. You know, some teachers might say it's this thing, another teacher might say it's another thing. And the teachers admitted themselves that they were really uncertain about what it means. They were really struggling. Teachers complained that they didn't get much time to think about it or to critically reflect on how global citizenship plays out in their own lives. If school leaders were not committed to global citizenship education, not committed to implementing it or giving time to it, then teachers said that they would not be encouraged to think about it or teach for it. There was one teacher said, "Why would I bother? If the leader is not on board, why would I bother?" So that's a very interesting point. Teachers emphasized that leaders will set the learning priorities, and leaders showed also that they were kind of unsure about what global citizenship means as well. Students experience global citizenship education as taking action. So this was mainly through community service, frequently within a charity or a fundraising framework. So a little bit more passive rather than really active. Local and global action was mentioned, but there appeared to be more meaningful experiences for young people to take action in their local communities. Students felt a sense of duty to others, but didn't always clearly demonstrate how that could manifest. It was a little bit cloudy. Global citizenship was experienced by both students and teachers as skills and knowledges that would pave the way for future global mobility and an opportunity in their adult lives. So they saw that this was something that maybe could lead to study abroad or a job in another country. So it was, and this was connected to another idea that global citizenship was something that could bring future economic advantage. So that's important to understand. As we think about education existing within this sort of dominant model of civilization that we're currently in of neoliberalism, where things can be instrumentalized. Okay, now I do have an article that you can look at which expands upon the ideas in that slide. If you'd like to read more, this is an article from the journal Education, Citizenship and Social Justice, written with my co-author Peter Brett from the University of Tasmania. It's also open access, so please have a look at that. So to start wrapping up, recommendations from my small study that I did. Giving time, support and resources to teachers was really seen as an important next step in helping teachers to deal with teaching global citizenship education. They said they wanted time to reflect, and they said they would like to have resources. They really appreciated resources. School leaders as well really appreciated resources. Another recommendation is encouraging the development of whole institutional visions of global citizenship. This is a big task, and also with curriculum integration. So making curricular connections from vision to practice was seen as something that could help schools, teachers, learners to have a better and deeper, more meaningful understanding of global citizenship. So this includes engaging with research, engaging with the scholarly research that's out there. It's a huge field, looking at what scholars are finding in different contexts and seeing what is possible in educational institutions. A part of this is that leaders have to get on board as well. So if global citizenship is not a priority for leaders, then it's not going to be a priority for the educational institution broadly. Another recommendation is to explore learner experience and build upon them. Learners bring a wealth of resources to institutions, and connecting learning to those resources creates meaningful learning experiences. Students placed importance on interpersonal relationships. I think that that's really key. So how do you build on that for a more critical global citizenship education? Global citizenship requires ethical anchors. This is a really big recommendation. To keep global citizenship on the more ethical path, it needs some anchors. What they are depends on the institution and the place. In the context of neoliberalism, global citizenship can be distorted and instrumentalized, and it can do harm. We have to admit that. We like to imagine that global citizenship is a very happy, peaceful pursuit, but it can do harm. So it needs an ethical anchor. And lastly, context matters. Global citizenship is specific to locality and it is negotiated in place. And finally, if you'd like to read more about my thoughts on global citizenship, please have a look. I review books through that link as well. You'll see I have a global education book club. I review books that can be helpful, resources. Let's do more research into global citizenship education. Let's keep exploring. Let's keep describing. Let's keep explaining this strange and misty concept and see how it's manifesting in practice. I hope that you all engage with research and the scholarly works on global citizenship, and that in turn fosters critical reflection for everybody here today on what it is and what it can be. I will add one more thing, that if you are a global citizenship researcher, if you're doing academic research, if you aspire to be an academic researcher in global citizenship, I am part of a really lovely community of academics, the Academic Network on Global Education and Learning. I'm a facilitator for the Early Career Researcher group. So please look us up, angel-network.net. Community is really important when you're doing research as well. So that's what I would add. And thank you very much to the Global Citizenship Foundation for the opportunity to speak today. And thank you for coming along. Hopefully I'm on time, just about. Are there any questions? Any questions? I'm happy to answer. I'll stop sharing my screen as well. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them. I'm looking through the chat. There's people from everywhere, which is fantastic. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any questions. Yeah, maybe there'll be some more questions once you've read the articles. That's a good point. Okay, thank you so much, everybody. It's been lovely to be able to share some findings from my research and to encourage more research into global citizenship. Thank you.